here today with a panel of experts to discuss the issue of homelessness in Sydney. First, we will meet with Crystal, the Minister of Human Services in New South Wales Government. Hi, Crystal.
Hi.
What are the government's key concerns regarding to homelessness?
I think the I think the most consideration of government is the social order, security, and cost. Firstly, homeless would break the city laws. With the increase in the number of homeless people, the communities make inevitable complaints on the homeless because homelessness tends to have a negative impact on local communities, such as drinking, begging, or prostitution. This usually increases the security risk of communities and breaks the normal laws. Secondly, homeless also increase the cost of taxpayers. Homeless personnel often take up public resources and increase the average cost of arrest. The maintenance costs are expensive, such as homeless medical service and support services of homeless prison beds. These programs funds generally come from private donations of taxpayers. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Crystal. Let's now to chat with the Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick, I know you have research about the medicine and also you have a panel expert of the Medicine University of Wollongong. What are the primary health concerns you find in homelessness in your studies?
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce the situation of the health problem of those homeless. Actually, they have different kinds of health problems, such as the high blood pressure, diabetes, and asthma. Those kind of problems could become worse because they don't have suitable place to store the medications. And second one, maintaining health is very difficult for them because malnutrition is very common and the diet is difficult in soup kitchen and shelter as their food always very high in salt and sugar. And the third one, behavioral health issues such as depression and alcoholism could become worse in such difficult situations, especially if there's no solutions in sight. And after that, injuries that result from violence or accidents do not heal properly because bathing, keeping bandages clean, and getting proper rest is impossible for them. So it is very hard for them to recover. And the last one, some minor issues such as common cold could become worse because and cause some serious problems such as infections. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. Here we have another specialist, Dr. Maif, the psychologist of Sydney University. Doctor, I know you have a broad research about the trauma. How is trauma relevant to homelessness?
Thank you, Mr. Fahid. Actually, homelessness is very relevant to trauma. And as we just heard from Dr. Nick, most of the health issue he just mentioned is actually effects of trauma. So when it comes to trauma, I would like to talk about trauma as a cause and as effect. And first, it's a cause because the exposure to trauma, especially complex trauma, which is a period of exposure to multiple trauma events, such as sexual abuse in early childhood, can physically and psychologically affect the way a person behave and responds, which would affect all dimensions of person life, whether in terms of education, health, and employment. Especially, it would affect negatively, actually, the capacity of a person to financially retain housing and maintain housing relationship, which would lead at the end of the day to being homeless. On the other hand, we can look to trauma as an effect, and homeless people are pushed into area and neighborhoods of disadvantage, so they are vulnerable not just to experience personal violence, but also to witness a trauma event. And we should not forget that homelessness itself is about stress and depression, which are traumatizing.
It's really interesting. It's really a problem, doctor. Why should the public be concerned about the homelessness?
Um, Actually, in Australia, we should really concern about trauma because the recent study shows that between 5 to 10% of Australian people will suffer from PTSD. So it's really annoying.
Thank you, Dr. Nave. It's a really good discussion. Now we want to speak with Dylan, the project manager of the homelessness project. Hello, Dr. Dylan. I heard about your application for the homelessness. Can you explain more about the project?
Thanks, Fahid. Yeah, we've been busy trying to devise a way to streamline service provision for the homeless in Sydney. As we've heard from my fellow experts here today, the problems are numerous. There's any number of problems from health to political and economic strain on the local economy. There's other service providers out there right now who are providing niche services such as shelters for children, for women, for drug addicts, for alcoholics, for survivors of domestic abuse, as was touched on by Dr. Nath. So we tried to devise a new way of looking at it, and we came up with a twofold solution: to increase resources for those aforementioned service providers, but also to put the homeless people in closer contact with the service providers to allow for a more directed service provision. So we've ended up with our application Homely, and it is a phone application, and it would surprise probably most people listening, and maybe my experts beside me, that a lot of homeless people have access to this technology. The way it works is it puts homeless people in contact with NGOs, government organizations, police, any service provider. And it puts the service provider in contact with the homeless, but also with the community, and the community in touch with the service providers. Let me give you an example of how this might work. An NGO representative could log onto the application and see profiles of homeless people who are sleeping rough in Waterloo or Glebe or Newtown. And on these profiles, would have specific needs for those people sleeping rough, whether that be short-term or whether that be long-term. Now, being able to access these needs would allow the service provider to not only curate a directed service, but also be allowed to keep track of where people are and how they're going, and as I said, direct a service for their needs, tailored specifically. On the other side of the application, the same NGO representative would be able to reach out to the community as a call to arms. If they realized that people needed food, if people needed tangible goods like blankets, or if they maybe even needed labor, they can reach out to the community on the same application for assistance. We at Homely, we realize that we don't think that homelessness is just the homeless person's problem, it is everybody's problem. So we thought the solution must take that into account, and it needs to be everybody's solution. Hence why we have taken this community direction.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan. We want to continue this discussion, but our time is finished. Thank you for our participation.
Thank you. Thanks.